Hello, I'm your host, Effie Pilarinu, and today I'm connecting all of us with Dinis Guarda. Dinis, welcome. It's so great to have you again and connecting with you. For our audience, Dinis Guarda wears so many hats. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an author of multiple books, and he's the CEO of ztdium and the FreedomX. And today, I mean, we have to focus on one of the many topics that he's passionate about, and that he not only writes, but builds projects and creates communities and inspiration around them. Today, we're going to focus on smart cities. Dinis, welcome, and thank you for making the time in your busy schedule.
No, it's a pleasure to be here, Effie. You know, I admire a lot your work and your fantastic thought leadership and work.
Thank you, Dinis. So let's start from, you know, the recent wonderful event that I wasn't able to attend in person in London. That was around the launch of a research that you have been spearheading around smart cities. Tell us, let's start from the basics. What are smart cities? I mean, naively speaking, people probably think of, okay, let's put some sensors here and there and you know, make things smart, from the trash bins to the traffic lights and things like that. Tell us how to think about smart cities today.
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the conclusions of the study we've been doing the last 3 years is definitely there's still a lot of, I would say, a lot of questions around defining smart cities. But I would say that my definition, and I think all the people I've been working, is that the smart cities are a bit like the cities of the past. They embed the hopes of humanity, and they provide a promise of trying to improve and use the best technologies of our time to improve the cities and the places where we live. And this implies fundamental areas of policies, the fundamental areas of technologies that can support the cities, and having a component of data around these decisions, around this quantification, and around the process of managing a city. So like you said, you can use all the layers of technologies to improve better cities and to create solutions that can actually embed these parts, that you can create a better areas of strategy. And I think this is particularly important because when you look at these, one of the areas that we discuss is mostly what makes a city, especially if you look at history. Most of the innovation around history has been always based on cities. And the quadruple or actually the different areas of the smart city touches is how we can improve the financial and the business of a city. That of course creates wellness, financial wellness and wellness in general, the health, the education, the livability, the people and human resources, and all the areas of leadership of the city. So mostly a smart city is a smarter city. I like to call it smarter city concept. Actually, I'm writing a book about smarter cities. And in the sense is using the tools of our times, the fourth industrial revolution, emergent technologies, to improve this management of the city. And this is kind of what should be the concept of smart cities, not so much about IoT, blockchain, AI, but using the tools to empower the 360 degrees our city can work, and as well the sustainability around the city. The human first, then the second, and I would say that just to finish is mostly the people, that is of course always first, the education and the academia, the financial and the business, and of course all the technology components on this. And I think this is where the relationship with this creates a smart city.
Why do I have the impression that the research that's been done, and I'd like to understand more, tell us what kind of research and who was involved in this, because you mentioned it's a 3-year research project, but it gives me the sense that you're sort of impersonating the ancient Greeks approach of what politia is. Polis is what we call city and so on. So
it is actually a very
with
good point. It's a very good point. The polis, the Greek Athens, and the polis was actually the first, I would say, first structure. I would say that is the first smart city. Let's put it that way, because it was a city that put together all the elements that that we're trying to do right now. So the bridge between the policies, the bridge between the governance, and of course, at the time, it was the most advanced city in the world. So I think this kind of areas, and of course the technology as well, but the technology changes with time. So of course, right now we have the digital technology in the fourth industrial revolution of society 5.0. If you would go to old Greek times, we had all the different technology, which at the time were still the most advanced, like writing and like fire and all these things that were key. So this was a research, and it's still a research ongoing. We didn't finish it. Then we have two components. So one component is an academic and research part, and the second part is a technology layer that we're building. So we're building a global cities index that we call it Cities ABC Index DNA. That is part of the platform citiesabc.com that intends to be a platform for sustaining cities and kind of creating a layer of data and wiki around cities. So it's like a wiki for cities with a component of data on the top of that. And this is open data. We're trying to make the platform open to everyone in the world. And the citiesabc.com is precisely a platform that I created because of my experience working with countries and cities around the world. And I found that there was a huge problem with data. So that means even something as simple as the number of inhabitants per city varies if you go to different sources, and sometimes you don't understand which is the number that is correct. So if you go more, let's say, in the top 1,000 cities in the world or top 2,000, then you get lost. And you get lost, okay, what's the number of the population? What's the criteria for this? What's the policies? And that's what we try to do. So this was a research that was conducted and led, of course, by our team in ztudium and Cities ABC. That is, Tech ABC is one of our companies related with this. And we had two major partners on the academic side that led this. So Professor Kiran Jude Fernandez, that is the Vice Dean of University of Durham and former Director of UNESCO UK, and as well as part of the board of Ztudium Group. And he's as well a professor in operations management in the University of Durham, and has been working with the likes of MIT and NASA, precisely working on this. And this was a study that he did with Professor Yu Xiang, that is as well part of our scientific council. So Professor Yu Xiang is a very high-profile personality as well in the academic world. He's a professor in operations management as well in the University of Surrey and Vice Dean for, I think, international affairs, and has been involved as well with Cambridge and a lot of other universities. So these two academics are part of our academic team. We've been working with them for 3 years, and Professor Kiran put together with two other professors, so Dr. Atanu Chaudhary, and that is a professor from the University of Durham as well, and Ashish Kakar, that is a research scholar in operations management as well in the University of Surrey. And then we work, and I want to highlight that as well, with Birgit Anderson, that is the Chief Innovation Officer of Big Innovation Center, which I think is a good interview for you, Effie. She's one of the personalities leading the UK Parliament research around blockchain, AI, and as well working right now in some ideas related with smart cities. And we had, of course, Hilton Super in our team of leadership, and we had Jayon Peterson from the World Smart Cities involved, and as well David Fernandez and the team of researchers from our team, Maria Fonseca, Anthony de Sigley, and William Ogi, and Caroline. So, and this is kind of the team. We are right now highlighting this and taking this study to become a bigger publication about the cities, policies, and definitions, even the concepts that we're talking here.
So it seems to me that this is kind of bringing together what we call in innovation ecosystems, but really bringing it into daily life, and not just in innovation labs or innovation hubs and so on, and bringing these concepts where you need all these policies, you need the data, you need the human capital, the upskilling, and so on. But how does the concept of digital twins fit into this? Because I'm asking, digital twins are discussed within the context of the metaverse, but it seems to me that they have a place also in smart cities and in building the bridges between the physical city, the physical world and economic activity, and whatever goes on in the virtual world, and not thinking only about gaming. Virtual world, we all know is broad. So tell us about digital twins and how you think of these within this context of the smart cities.
Yeah, actually, the digital twins start precisely related with the data projection for smart cities. Actually, now it expanded to the metaverse and a lot of different things, but the digital twin has been until now, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry right now, that is a virtual representation of an object or system that spans the life cycle and is updated from real-time data and uses simulation, machine learning, and to help decision making and looking at these things. So these digital twins start initially by looking at digital twins from a building, digital twin from a district in a city, and this is, in the end of the day, is the core of smart cities technology. In the end of the day, of course, the point right now is that digital twins, because of the advantage that it brings and the risks as well, we need to consider all the pros and cons. But of course, it's much more positive than negative. It can be used for wrong things, like any technology. But the digital twins technology evolved to become, I would say, the layer of that defines a lot of the technology around smart cities, and actually any city in the world or any building. So if you look at any city that is trying to have a layer of technology and looking at life cycle, for instance, of a building and gets real-time update, this is the digital twin. I think the concept became very powerful because, of course, it solves so much problems. And for me, I've been working on digital twins for the last 3 years, mostly to looking at, actually more than 3 years, but 3 years more in terms of more advanced research. And the fact that we have right now entire digital twins of cities. For instance, the UK has an entire system of digital twins for the City of London, and actually they're creating an entire system for the entire country. Actually, I've been working with the UK department that is working on this, and actually there's partnerships with global cities. For Istanbul has been working some of these things. You have, for instance, of course, Singapore that is super advanced. New York is advancing on this. For instance, we have been working with a company called ztdium that mostly has been creating digital twin technology for entire systems, districts, and cities. And of course, this is going to be a huge element because from this component of the cities, districts, and so forth, now we took this for digital twins of ourselves. And of course, this takes a lot of ethical considerations, but as well as healthcare, data protection. Because, for instance, if you created an entire digital twin of you or me, and if this is done properly on technology level, I can understand everything about my health. And actually, we can start predicting, okay, the issues on your health, the issues on a lot of different things. And now even with the AI, for instance, right now, as you know, I'm working in avatar technology. And one of the things we discussed was, for instance, for some faces where you're working with doctors that are especially focused in facial recognition and different things, we can start predicting actually the personality of the person, and we can start having a lot of other consequences. So I think this part of digital twin, let's say, in one end, I think for you and for me that are very digital, exists already. So at the moment, the first layer is, I'm talking right now from the cities to, and this is about smart cities, to the personal, is that at the moment, for instance, in cities in China, you can already understand people walking and finding all the information about this person, and then starting to put data associated with the person, financial data, and a lot of different things. So this is the same. What in buildings, for instance, we're working with a team that actually create digital twins for most of the buildings in Silicon Valley, and this creates a huge economy of scale. And as well, it protects from, if there's an earthquake, if there's anything, actually the digital twin can start creating this. But as well, you create the life cycle. If the building has problems of electricity, the building is some kind of pollutive or non-sustainable the part, this starts creating a lot of new ways. So that's what we're trying to do with this, and that's what that the digital twin technology is going to be more and more important going forward, both for the smart cities and for us as individuals.
I mean, for me, when I think of digital twins, I think of the first of trade type of use cases, because there I see more clearly what can be done. And I know that there's a lot of smart manufacturing, if you want, and logistics and so on that. And I see less ethical issues and more potential also in the combined in the financial sector to improve. But in general, I mean, for me, how we are changing trade with all these technologies is a big topic, but also identification and ownership. And I know that you think about these concepts a lot with the broad and very sort of being involved in all these progressive technologies all the time. You see how ownership and trade is evolving. Can you talk to us a little bit about those concepts, some of your recent thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question, and you can look at it from the perspective of smart cities, from the perspective of society, and from the perspective of us as individuals. So I think we are actually one of my new research is about the humanity next stage of development, and I think at the moment we have like 3 layers that are, or multiple layers that are right now clashing with each other, but progressing and evolving at the same time. And you touch a very important thing on the financial data. Because, for instance, if you look at Bloomberg terminal or any kind of financial terminal, is a digital twin terminal that represents data and models data in terms of facts and information. So if you look at this part, I think the main point is, if you look at this from a city's perspective, there's data right now. We have the financial data, the economical data. Then we're starting to have the real-time 3D data. For instance, I can start visualizing an entire city, a district, and then I can actually look and create physical versus virtual. Then when it comes to us, this is already happening, because, for instance, there's the Effie that is here with me, and you are virtual right now talking with me. So we're already in a metaversive kind of interaction, and it's me that I'm physical here, but that's my version that will be on this interview. So this is kind of already an amplification of ourselves, and it's a digital twin of ourselves that we're putting outside. So I think the challenge right now, and I think there's a challenge and an opportunity, and that is where I always put my hat as an author and my hat as an entrepreneur and technologist as 3, and as well one hat that I'm right now, and actually I'm very concerned about this as well as an ethical point of view, or ESG, is that this is creating a lot of new nuances, because at the moment there's a velocity of understanding what we're talking here. So very few people can actually understand a lot of these things we're talking about. And this is a big problem, is that the technology will not stop. And the AI is going to be as advanced in 5 years as all capacity of humanity. Elon Musk publicly is starting to build right now humanoids. I've been working with Sophia the robot, with David Hansen and Ben Gorsel, which are people that I admire a lot, and I've been collaborating. And actually, I'm buying some robots myself, and this is already happening. Okay, this is not in 5 years. So the challenge right now in terms of this data quantification and digital twin part that is key for the smart cities is: are we going to do this to create a better narrative for humans, or are we going to create numb people? They're going to be kind of brainstormed or kind of brainwashed, which is worse, by these technologies. And this is something that we need to consider, even looking what is happening right now with Ukraine, that just using media in a very basic, low basic, you can do wonderful and horrible things. So I would say that these areas of data, I always look at it from a perspective of, as an entrepreneur, on the very positive side, as an author in a very kind of more, I would say, very conscious that this is very dangerous. Okay, and for instance, you have if you look at the let's look at the visions of the future. I always like to look at Star Wars versus Star Trek, or even Terminator. I prefer that we create a Star Wars or Star Trek version of humanity, because at least humanity continues building and technology still supports humanity, not the other way around. So I would say, to wrap up, is that this data quantification that we're building and these new layers of digital twins, for me, the biggest challenge is definitely people being conscious about it, because we are all already on this. Everyone that has a smartphone is quantifying the data. Health, the smartphone knows more about our health than we know, and he knows everything, and he knows if we are in good health, if you are in bad health, if we are stressed, if you are not sleeping. He can predict most of the stuff. And of course, if you put this data on the financial insurance level, as you can imagine, you can start qualifying people in people that are risk, people that are not risk. So I think this is the biggest risk. But on the positive side, we can actually create millions of new jobs, and you can use this to leapfrog humanity to the society 5.0, which I think is critical. But definitely, and as well, that's what smart cities in theory are, is really creating better and smarter cities. So I believe that we have that opportunity, and it's in our hands. And I think people like you and me can actually amplify this to the rest of the people, and at least translate this in a simple way. Because if we make it too complex, people don't care, or they don't really take it serious. But this is part of all of us, because in the end of the day, companies like Facebook, Google, Apple, and Amazon, they're not the bad guys. Okay, they will let them do that. So it's our responsibility as well to give them a sense of responsibility and make them aware and responsible for the good and the bad that comes out of this.
I agree totally with you, and we've discussed this often, that part of our giving back is to spread the word and understanding, so we don't create a new digital divide through these technologies that, you know, even ourselves we are having, you know, it takes a lot to keep up with how they are used and what is happening, because we are really living in this convergence of advanced technologies and huge experimentation of the possibilities of how to use in good ways and to solve big social problems and inequalities, and always focused, as you said, on the fact that we shouldn't be creating another divide and another inequality or another privileged society versus unprivileged. I mean, Dinis, we could be talking hours about these issues. Thank you so much for sharing all this on the topic of smart cities. I'll be sharing with the audience the links so they can go and read more in depth if they want. And tell us one last, if you want, share with us a thought in terms of this approach of a human-centric, if you want, use of all these exciting digital technologies.
I think, yeah, it's a big thing, but I would try to summarize it. For me, it's, if you look at the digital twins and smart cities as a way to make us smarter people, that's what I try to do. So I try to, I say, we're building these fantastic technologies, and smart cities in the end of the day is about putting the best of our technologies up front and creating better systems for our cities that combines all the different areas. So if you look at that as a way of empowering ourselves in terms of, first of all, continuous education, continuous learning, and as well projects like this of yours that are really important, because I learn with you, we learn with each other, and I think people listening to us, of course, we are a bit more critical and more curious about learning these things, but I think it's really, people need to keep this curiosity, and that's what I keep. That it's my inner child, and I learn a lot with my children because they are another generation. But I think for people listening to us, I would put always a bit of the carrot and the stick. I think we need to think about that in a psychological ways, that if we let ourselves go, we become zombies. And I would say that avoid that. avoid that, because there's much more control in our hands than we think, and we can make a big difference, even if it's just about being, because at the moment the problem with the digital world is that there's the 90-10 and the 99-1, is that 90% of the people are passive, they're just consuming, 10% are influencers and people putting the message out there, and 1% are creators. So that never changed humanity, but the point right now is that these creators, if they use this for wrong, we have a big problem. And they don't want 99% of zombies. So we want to make sure that we use these technologies to empower us, and especially people leading cities, people leading businesses. Please, if you're not on this, you are losing the best opportunity of your business and your life. So as well, look at the positive, because that's a massive opportunity here, and probably complain less and be more grateful and use these things, because I think it's another thing I see is a lot of people just looking at the negative stuff, but not really going deep and understanding, just go through the stereotype. But let's get deep. When you start getting deep, you start seeing new opportunities, new business. And that's what I love to do about this.
So on an inspirational, positive note, we want people to get more involved and become creators and express themselves in whatever way. And for me also, Dinis, it's all about enabling digital communities that go beyond the physical. And that for me is full of hope and gives me a lot of joy to think that we will have at our fingertips, if you want, such a technology, and really be in communities that we love to be and we can co-create. So that's sort of the vision that keeps me hoping and blocking away the negative parts. Thank you so much again, Dinis, for being with us.
My pleasure, and thank you for this opportunity.